Hello and welcome to Sacred Psychology, the podcast for misfits and mystics. Here, neuroscience and spirituality go hand in hand. Join me, Tamara Powell, on a no-holds-barred adventure outside the box, because that's where all the truly great shit happens anyway. Welcome back to Sacred Psychology. I'm your host, Tamara Powell. Before we get started, just a quick disclaimer that while you're used to me being at least a little explicit, today's episode is highly explicit. So if you're in an area where there's other people listening and you're going to be a little shy about it, or you've got little ears around you, you might want to hit pause and come back when you're by yourself or when you're just not going to care about it. My guest today is known as Devi Maisha. She's a tantra and sacred sexuality teacher who specializes in showing men and women how to take their sex lives higher, release their trauma, create better relationships, and transform their lives into abundance and ecstasy. She's a former certified personal trainer and nutrition coach who combines her knowledge and study in the areas of psychology, tantra, and sacred sexuality with her training in energy work to facilitate inner healing and better sex for her clients. Today, we're diving into the realms of sacred sexuality, tantra, kink, polyamory, and all things juicy when it comes to infusing our lives with mindful, sacred sex. So without further ado, I give you the one, the only, the ever incomparable Devi Maisha. Hey, Maisha, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So excited.
Yes.
You and I have had a series of conversations, but not on the big scene yet. So I am so excited to share you with my global audience and dive into all the juicy tidbits. I hear New York City behind you.
Oh, yes, of course. There's nowhere that I can go to get away from the sounds of the city in the background. But I am so excited to be on with you. I love how we talk, so I'm really happy to be here.
It actually makes me miss home. I'm a New England baby myself, so down here in the South, we've got birds chirping outside, which is lovely. But every once in a while, it's nice to hear a siren.
It is. I went to high school in New England, so it's a beautiful scenery. I do miss that sometimes.
All right. So actually, I think that's a great metaphor and segue for what we're talking about today, right? Sex. It's a conversation with other means, as Esther Perel, calls it. And so sometimes it is more like birds chirping, and other times it is like the sirens going off. And it should be, and it all can be wonderful, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It can be all of that, and it's all valid, and it's all good from the quiet to the extremely noisy.
I'm already like, ooh, sacral chakra, take me.
Yes.
So by trade, you are currently working as a tantra and sacred sexuality teacher, among other things, but this is the title that I love and want to tap your brain on today. Tell me why you got into that, though. Why this path?
Sure. It's so interesting how life kind of just, it takes you all the places, and it always, you think you're going this straight line. That's what we're taught, but it's really the zigzag. I've always been interested in sex. I've always been the person that everyone asks questions to about sex. Even before I was really having sex, I've always been interested in relationships. And that was just when I was a teenager. And at that time, the books were like Our Bodies, Ourselves, and I read through that whole entire thing and wanted to know all the parts of the genitalia for males and females. And then when I got older, later teens, it was, the Kama Sutra. And I was always into spirituality and energy work and this idea that sex was just this transformative thing. But I had no words for that, right? This is early 90s. There's no big tantra boom at this time, And so I studied witchcraft, right? Because that was like the closest thing you could get to that type of juicy, sexual, spiritual spell work. And then I found myself years later involved in personal training, learning about the body, but still feeling this pull towards sex, and found out I loved kink and BDSM And along that path, ended up getting into coaching and then discovered, oh, Tantra. Yes, that's it. Oh, Taoism. Yes, that's it. And this is like 2013, 14, 15, where now it was like an explosion. It was no longer underground because people have been studying this for a while.
Right.
And all of a sudden now it was like the mainstream thing to do. And having come from a family where people were divorced and I had gotten divorced, I was just so intrigued as to what was going on and realizing that maybe I wasn't monogamous because I had cheated on my ex-husband and I always liked more than one person. And just this whole discovery and, well, maybe if we were all given the tools to be more authentic with who we were, and maybe if we knew that who we were was just really okay, and maybe if we knew that we didn't have to fit into the boxes that were given to us, we might not cause so much pain in the world. And that was really my driving force. Like, how can I help people experience less pain? And that's really what led me to what I do now, just helping people experience better sex and healthy relationships so they can have happier lives.
Amen. My brain's already going a million miles a moment, but I want to focus in first on Tantra as that pleasure path towards healing. Now, instantly, all of the naysayers are just thinking that we're all a bunch of fucking hedonists who want to try and minimize our pain and maximize our pleasure, but they're missing so much more to that. Can you speak for a moment about the idea of the pleasure path and why it is a very practical approach to moving through life, that it's not just you and me sitting around in these orgies, and I guess we wouldn't be sitting in orgies, would we?
No, not at all. Not at all. Well, I would, but anyway,
right.
Go on.
Yeah, I get it, girl. But like denying, the bills at home, that we're not at all walking away from, the angst of life, but that there is that alchemy, that transformation. Can you talk for a moment about that?
I can. And so like literally right now, my nipples and my clitoris are tingling because so yes, this whole idea, I fucked more from pain and I fucked less following the path of Tantra. So when I left my ex-husband, for instance, and my brain was just, and anyone who's gone through divorce, or the end of a long relationship, your brain is just kind of mush. And I'd come back to New York with these 4 kids and my whole entire life wasn't just flipped upside down. It had exploded. And the only way that I could really deal with my pain was to not deal with it. And I found myself just fucking anything that I could just to feel this high of for just a little bit, to take me out of this devastation that I had felt. And I mean, hey, I had a really great time. I regret none of them. It was awesome. But the reason why I was doing it wasn't awesome. And that was also one of the things that led me to this path, was just this pain that I was in. And the more that I studied Tantra, the more that I studied how we are attracted to people, the more that I studied how I could turn my pain into pleasure. Ironically, the less I had random sex, because when I had encounters with people, I wanted it to mean something. That doesn't mean that a one-night stand doesn't mean anything, because it can. I'm a firm believer that I can connect with someone Thursday night and have the most awesome spiritual experience with them Thursday night. And I can also connect with someone on the 5th of the month and have the most awesome, sexual experience with them on the 31st. So it wasn't the time lapse that I was looking for. It was the connection. And Tantra really taught me how to do that and to choose quality partners with the most awesome sex, and to walk away feeling fulfilled and satisfied versus depleted and empty.
Right. It's about that deep connection rather than having to escape, which is ironically what Tantra is often accused of by people who don't understand it well. So I want to share with my readers something that you write on your website as a way to contain this and capture it. You say that you've been through homelessness, sexual assault, and extreme poverty. So it's not like you're coming up here completely unaware, totally privileged out or something. You know what it's like to also, you say, have body images, depression, and even a suicide attempt. You've mentioned already that you've had relationship and trust issues surrounding men, and you used to think that you were born just to experience pain with tiny amounts of joy sprinkled throughout. I hear that, girl, every week. By the time people show up on my therapy couch, they've often convinced themselves that life is to be received as something like suffering, like a really bad version of Zen Buddhism. All this suffering, all just dukkha, and we're just trying to make some meaning through it. But then I want to share with them how you turn this on its head by saying our pain does not have to define us. Our disappointments don't need to become the blueprint for our lives. If we can learn from what happened, so it's not like we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and see those events as station stops on our journey of life, then we can learn to open up our hearts and our bodies to feel the sweet, juicy bliss that comes with being here now. And that's what I think that sensei focus of Tantra is amazing for, because this final sentence is everything. You write, if we can learn to live sensually and orgasmically, we can transmute those stops into ecstasy and create lives that turn us on every day. I mean, who the fuck doesn't want that?
Oh my God. Wow. So I've never heard someone else read that before. And I got to tell you, I'm literally kind of in tears right here.
Right?
Partly because I'm like, who was that other person that experienced that? Like, I remember what I've been through. But the sheer crushing pain of it doesn't resonate in my body like it did before. And so it's kind of like these tears of like, oh my gosh, wow. Yeah. Like, that's amazing. The latter half, I'm like, that's me every fucking day. Mm-hmm. You know, and having to take, man, listen, the tears that were shed, you know, and to take that and turn it into, you know, someone who was once, on all of the assistance, like the high government, you know, have all my info and my children's info, and to become someone who it's like gets letters like, hey, your SNAP benefits have been terminated because you no longer qualify. I was like, hell fucking yeah, you know, and to have come from that and to know that there are people out there, like you said, who are just like, well, this is just my life. Like that crushes me when people are like, this is just how it is. And I'm just like, I want to shake them and go, no, like there's so much for you. And it's not like religious zealotry. It's really not. It's like, I don't want to knock on your door. I kind of do maybe. And be like, you know, hi, I have this thing for you, you know. But it's so beautiful, and it can blend with everything. It can blend with everything that you are. You don't have to change your religion. I mean, your beliefs maybe a little bit, but the idea that you can take the thing that we're all doing anyway, you know, unless you've dedicated yourself to a life of celibacy,
yeah.
Right. And use that magic to transform your whole entire life. I'm like, it's free. Your medication costs money. This is free. I mean, still use your meds because sometimes they're necessary, but this is free, you know? Right.
Now I'm picturing you going door to door. Hi, do you have a moment to talk about the juicy orgasms that you could be having totally for free and transform your life?
I guarantee you, people would be like, wait, what?
So I guess the point that I really want to draw out as a clinician is that there are a variety, a complete smorgasbord of paths and modalities towards healing. And the conversation that you and I are having today is one of them that is just as powerful, just as practical, and can sometimes be much shorter in duration to get to the good stuff, is through Tantra or sacred sexuality in general. It doesn't have to, Tantra being, you know, one side of it that most people have heard of. That's why I wanted to start with it. But just this idea that, hello, your genitals are there more for just reproduction or masturbation or, you know, once a week missionary sex.
Oh my God.
That'd be awful.
So sad.
Yeah.
So sad.
Mm-hmm. But for those of you who find yourself there is hope. I'm glad we're having this conversation today and you chose to walk with us on the treadmill or drive and listen to us for a hot minute.
So much there. It's so interesting. So, and again, the zigzag of life. So I was originally a psych major at NYU, and I wanted to be like a psychologist, right? Because I've always wanted to help people, right? And sometimes I imagine me, I would have probably ended up as a sex therapist.
For sure.
Had I done this, and it is so interesting that you're saying that. So there are so many ways to achieve this sense of inner peace and well-being. And it seems like Tantra and sacred sexuality are the things that people go the furthest away from, because there's still this idea that sex is this dirty, shameful thing that no one should know that you do, but that clearly we exist because someone did it, but it's like when you have the idea that the thing that got you here is the thing that's dirty, how do you feel about you?
Great point.
And I don't know. And I think that sticks in our psyche. I mean, along with the Judeo-Christian, forces that we have in the United States in particular, that keep pounding somewhere in the back of our head that sex is this dirty, nasty thing that you do over here if you're like freaky, you're like nasty, or it's this really pristine thing that you do over here in moderation, as though it's alcohol. And then, but there's this whole middle area. And then there's still this idea that sex and spirituality do not belong together. And that's what baffles me the most. It's like the thing that literally is the closest you can get to this creator that everyone espouses to is you try to separate it as though it's two separate things. And it makes me shake my head.
You and me both, sister, because I've always said mankind is a spiritual creature, but he's also a sexual creature, and you cannot disentangle the two. They are forever intertwined. Ooh. So bringing it back around to something that you said that totally resonates with me, that when we are living in the throes of our dysfunction and our distress, that is when we actually act out the most and end up in these twisted, toxic relationships or sexual encounters. But actually, when you opened up to what a lot of these people might consider hedonistic or freaky, that ironically, you found healthy relationships, sexually empowered experiences, and you were fucking less because you didn't need that fix.
Yes, because I fell in love with myself. And I learned to fuck myself so well.
Yes, she did.
That anyone else was an addition to, not a reason for, and so that's what this path is. It's an energetic path. It's not just a sexual path. And I think when people hear Tantra, and like we all do, right? It's like most people come to Tantra like, I just want to have an hour-long orgasm. Right. But then you realize you can't have an hour-long orgasm until you release pain and shame, because your body literally won't allow you to experience that much pleasure because your psyche is preventing it. So then you start studying Tantra and you realize, oh, this isn't just about sex. No, it's about like all of my shadow side and like the underbelly of me that I don't want to look at. And now I have to look at that and look at the mirror, and I have to accept all of the parts of me. Like I have to accept the bitchy, selfish part of me. I have to accept the part of me that's like, no quote unquote morals whatsoever, and could give two shits about anything. Like I have to accept all of that. And the part of me that's just altruistic and wants to, because we all want to put the good face on, know. But in Tantra, you have to confront all of that, and you learn to love all of those parts of you, which means now you're showing up in the world energetically different, and you're attracting things differently, and you're falling in love with yourself. And so you're not looking to other human beings to fill the void, which is how people end up in a lot of toxic relationships, because they're scared to be alone. They're scared to be alone with themselves. They don't want to be lonely. They've got the TV on and everything else on, and they just want someone else there to tell them that they're special. to tell them that they're loved. I know I'm special. And in our society, it's like, that's conceited. No, I didn't say I was better than everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that is. I'm saying, I know I'm special. I know you're special. I know everyone is. I know I'm worthy of all the love in the world. And I give it to myself on a daily basis. And I think that's what's missing.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That's a powerful distinction. And we know this is a reason why, Viagra, for example, the most common thing that people pop in for, desire discrepancy and erectile dysfunction when they show up on my couch. Well, half of the time, more than that, 2/3 of the time, Viagra can sometimes not work for men because it is a psychological block. It's the same thing with women. They think they have a desire problem, but they don't. What they have is often that self-intimacy problem or other psychological blocks. And that's what we work to unlock, because if you've got any of that, you won't orgasm, you won't lubricate, you won't even be able to think about wanting something, because you've got this space within you that's going to naturally show up in the bedroom. It's the easiest spot for it to show up. And I often feel badly for men because they do have their genitalia on the outside. And so while we women can reach over for their lubricant, and how fucking sad is it that it's even expected at this day and age? For men, if their soldier doesn't rise to the occasion, the shame that they feel. So I'm so glad that you are pointing out that it begins with us and it begins internally. And the sexuality is the tip of the iceberg. So the sex side of Tantra is not the crux, the majority of it.
Correct. Surprise, surprise, folks.
I know, right? Shocking. All you people that thought we were just getting freaky today. We'll get that too. So I want to add in one more for you nerdy types out there. Evidence-based research on why this is an issue. Why, when you actually cut yourself off, do you end up acting out more? I once heard someone say that hedonism and puritanicalism are just two sides of the same coin, and they both cause distress and dysfunction. That really what we're looking for, what the Taoists call, right, the flow, that middle path.
Yes.
And what I've learned as a person and also a clinician is that path is authentic and different for each of us. For some of you, it won't be polyamory and kink. But for some of you, it will be learning to, enjoy some lingerie again and feel sexy in your own body and initiate sex, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So how do I know this? For example, I want to give you what we call the Rat Park study. I know, brilliant name we use. Back in the 80s or 90s, I don't remember, Rich, I think it was the 90s, they took lab rats, as we always work with, and got them addicted to morphine-laced sugar water. We were studying the addiction model. What causes human beings to become addicted to shit? And like good little rats, how could they not? They got good and addicted to it. Well, then we took them back, weaned them off of it, and then we took these rats and put them in a rat utopia, where rather than being in little tiny cages, they had access to other rats where they could mate, they could have their pups, they could run around. And then we reintroduced the morphine-laced sugar water. What's shocking and blew the lid off of addictions research is these rats did not go for it this time, because suddenly they had their needs fulfilled. That to me is what poly, kink, great sex in general, sacred intimacy is all about. Now, those of you who are going to write in with the other reasons why that study cannot be completely controlled, whatever, fuck off. That's fine. As with everything in psychology, there's a book ban for all of it. But the point being is suddenly we were looking at addiction as not just an internal thing, but also an external reaction. Are these people lit up mind, body, and spirit? If not, then healers like you and I need to help them find that disconnect and bring that home.
Ooh, that's deepness. I mean, because when you take that, and I actually remember studying that study. Mm-hmm. I think it's there's a combination here, right? And this is where you combine the two. There's this synchronicity between the idea of getting our needs met and being fulfilled, and the fact that we are energetic beings. And I think that's the point that often gets lost on people, and that people don't understand why a study like that could make sense, right? Because the energy shifts in you when you have your needs met in a specific way that you no longer require. We're vibrational, right? We're made of atoms, right? We're molecules. And so when that energy changes and shifts within us, we no longer need the external to do the thing that it used to do. We're vibrating literally at a different frequency. And that's why that study is valid. You know? But I want people to really, and people just thinking like, okay, we're humans walking around in this body. And we are, that's true. But that's where the sex and the spirituality, that's where they match, is that we're vibrational beings and we're having this experience. And then you inject these other things into the mix, and all of a sudden we're just like, and this doesn't mean, like I tell people, it doesn't mean like every day, like I'm never sad. You know what I mean? And I said that in, I think, one of my emails or something, or a post I wrote, does this mean that every day is rainbow and unicorns? I mean, yes, it does. But sometimes they're hiding from me, right? Whereas opposed to before, there were no rainbows or unicorns. It was just always gray. Like my life looked like Gotham on a daily basis. And because I think people think that Tantra is like this panacea. It's not. But what it does is it helps you to be able to shift, again, your energy differently so that you're not reaching for the external. So you don't need the morphine water, the sugar water.
You're right. Anymore. You won't need to overeat, overindulge, gamble, shop, whatever. The beautiful part is you can carry that turned on feeling wherever you go.
Yes, you can.
And it's not just about sex. It's this adrenaline. It's this creativity.
It's everything that you can. It's everything that you can imagine. It's one of the reasons why people would say, like my mom's family's from the South, and so you cook with love, right? Because food tastes different when you cook it and you wanted to cook it versus. And I know because my kids told me, like, there are nights when I've like thrown something together. It's kind of like
they can tell
this is all right, And then there are other nights I can make the same thing, and it's just like, wow, this tastes really great, because I put something different in it, and that's energy that you can carry with you everywhere. And I didn't have sex with my food then in
that moment.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful metaphor for life, is how different would every interaction be. There's the mindfulness of sacred sexuality. If we looked at every act that we went throughout our day, every exchange with another human being, every behavior that we're about to go through as an act of devotion, an act of prayer, an act of worship, an act of sacredness in general, everything would be infused with a different energy.
Yes, it would. And I think, because we've been taught to view like sex is only intercourse. If I say you should treat everyone like you're having sex with them, people are like, what's wrong with you? Why would I do that? Well, how would you treat someone you're having sex with? Would you smile at them? Would you just be a little nicer to them? I mean, come on. If we just treated everyone that way, I mean, unless I don't know what kind of sex you're having,
Holy no.
Right. If you just did it that way, the world would be a different place. And I've had this argument. Well, I didn't really argue because I don't like to do that online, because why? But this short discussion of the fact that, like, all sex doesn't have to be spiritual and enlightened either. Right. Like, I think that's
just fuck.
Right. Oh my God, please. Hard, fast, quickly,
Yeah.
Sometimes that's necessary. And that's okay too. Like, there's this idea of some, yes, in the Tantra community that it's like, it all has to be like this enlightened thing, and we must see the eye of God, while we are communing with each other. And I'm like, I'm bored. That's great. But can you just eat me and fuck me? Okay. Cause I'm horny and I just want to feel the energy. Okay. And that's okay too. It's more, I always tell people it's more about the awareness of it, not the activity.
Yes. Another great tweetable moment.
That's what it is. Just be aware of why you're doing it. That's all. I just want people to think and to be more conscious of
mindful
of what, yes, of whatever it is that you're doing. You're drinking, you got your weed, great. You know, you've got your dick, you've got your pussy, awesome. Just be mindful is all I'm saying. Don't do it just randomly and blindly without recognizing what you're doing.
Yeah, I like that. So once again, I want to bring it from, the sacral to a different side of practical. In this case, like mothering. I've been talking a lot about how, for me, my number one rule as a mother is that if I don't have a good enough reason to say no, my answer is yes. I want them to try things. I want them to experience their own natural consequences. If it's unsafe or it's going to hurt the family in some way, yes, I'm going to say no. So if I know that it's going to hurt them, they're not going to eat ice cream every day. Although ironically, if you let your kid try, they usually don't for too very long either.
Right.
Hedonism. But it's about what you just said of, have you even explored, boo-boo, why you're doing this thing? And for me, I look at so many parents and they just say no instantly. And if you ask them why, they don't have a good answer. So to me, this extends to so much more than just what we're doing with our genitalia. This tantric way of living is a mindful, practical way of living. It's moving moment by moment through the world with an inquiring spirit.
It absolutely is. And I'm so like, yay, I'm screaming inside. So I used to unschool my children when they were little. And when I started off and I started saying I homeschooled, my family thought I was a wackadoo. Like, why are you not sending your children to school? That's what we do. And then I had the note to say I was unschooling, like, well, what is that? I was like, well, I don't have any curriculum. It was like, they just figure out what they want to do for the day and we do it. And it's like, but how will they ever learn? I'm like, well, the way children learned for millennia, they just like, there's this idea that if you leave people alone to their own devices, they'll be sloths and they're just going to sit in a chair all day long and do nothing. And if a person is indeed doing that, there's probably something else going on, right? But when left to their own devices, and I've literally, and trust me, there are times when I've cringed. There are times I've left my children completely to their own devices. Like, here's the candy. Do what you will with it.
Right.
And it's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I just that. And just lo and behold, 5 days later, there was the candy. And it was like, no, we had enough. And it's so, I was just talking to a friend of mine. So what that looks like for the listeners who are like, gasp, oh my God, how would you do that? What that looks like after having done that for years, my youngest will be 14 on Thursday. I have 3 boys, 2 girls I've raised, 14, 16, 19, 20, and 29. And I've mothered enough to know that it looks like my 20-year-old daughter coming to me and saying, I took social media off my phone because I didn't like how it made me feel. I don't know how sensitive. I said, no, you're not. That's how it's designed. She said, yeah, I didn't want to have it on there anymore. So I took it off. Now she's put it back on. She's like, yeah, but I don't use it as much. It's just, I don't need to put all my stuff up there. And she's 20. This is all the world they live in. It looks like one of my sons, who probably murder me if he knew, but he won't listen, coming to me and saying to me, I was masturbating, but I don't really, I feel like it was taking me off my goals. So is there something that you can tell me to help me with the energy so I don't do it as much so that I can concentrate on some other things instead? Wow. Right? It's my youngest son saying, hey, one of the reasons why I quit debate is because I was doing it more for the awards and not so much for myself. And I didn't want to keep doing things for the outside praise all the time. I didn't want that to be my reason. That's what it looks like when you let your children regulate themselves, not on their own. You talk to them, you involve this mindfulness in them, but you allow them to grow and be who they are. It's scary as fuck. For real, it is, because parenting is the greatest experiment and it's got the highest stakes. You know, but I've also always infused, like, we've always talked about sex. We've always talked about pleasure. We've always talked about their bodies. We've always talked about knowing and understanding your limits, your boundaries. Like, we've had these conversations. So it wasn't all in a vacuum that this happened. but for them, it's always been about sex and pleasure, and understanding the self and being mindful and awareness. That's what it was. So it works. Mm-hmm. It's just, it takes a lot more time than saying no.
Exactly. That quick answer.
Yeah, it takes a lot more time. So in our house, it's, can I do this? Either it's yes or it's we'll see, or I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. And so when I do say no, they know it's a hard no.
Right.
It's not arbitrary. Like, wow, mom was like, no, it must be real. And you know what I get? Okay. I don't get pushback.
Nice. So that takes me, this mindset of, not living in a default no state, not living on default status at all, and allowing not just our children, but our lovers, our clients, and everyone else the opportunity to be fully autonomous. I call it radical autonomy, gifting ourselves and others with their own path. And for you, I, and a lot of other people, that means polyamory and kink.
Woo-hoo.
Woo! Can you describe, so people have heard bits of my story, why that was an important part of your path, or is?
So, I'll start with the kink. I found it to be a beautiful outlet for some of the darker sides of me, right? In like the safest place. And I feel like, and you learn this a little bit in psychology, like it's like this pressure valve for me in some ways, where I can delve into this world, into this part of me, and indulge that part, acknowledge it, know that it's there, love it, have pleasure with it, and then continue and go about my day. So I love kink for that. That's what it does for me. It allows me, it just allows me to just dig into that world of all. It's just so juicy to me. There's nothing like a good hand around my throat. And so I love it for that. Polyamory for me is a way for me to express all of myself, all of the different parts of me. And yes, we're one person, but we have so many different sides. I've always said, if I could have like a walk-in closet, what would I do? There'll be like my punk rock section, and like my business section, and like my grunge section, because I so do miss the early 90s, Seattle scene. And there's definitely like my slutty section, and all of these clothes all represent me. And I love the idea of having lovers that all represent me. That makes me feel so wonderful. Like, it doesn't make me feel split. It really makes me feel whole.
I love that.
Yeah.
That, to me, that last sentence, it doesn't make me feel split, it makes me feel whole, is everything. I think one of the most practical, fundamental tenets of polyamory is that love is not divided, it's multiplied. And anyone who's been a parent of more than one child or had more than one best friend does intuitively know that to be true.
Yes, it is. It's so funny when you talk about best friends. It's always been a little difficult for me, because it always felt like, and I don't know why we as women do this, but it's always like this, like choosing like the friend that you're closest to. And that was really difficult for me. And I found myself in situations where it was kind of like, I'm just not gonna hang out with any of you. Like, I'd rather be alone, if I've got to like one more than the other.
Right.
I didn't quite comprehend. I've never really comprehended that. So yeah, it's to me, it's all the same. I feel like love is abundance. And when people are I think monogamy is wonderful. I think polyamory is wonderful. I think it's all wonderful and beautiful, again, with intention. I think what most people are suffering from is not this idea of love when you hear them speak about monogamy. And what concerns me is when they speak of monogamy, it's more in terms of fear. Mm-hmm. That's the undertone that I hear a lot of times, is they're afraid to lose the person. Right. And then I'm like, well, what does it mean to you to be in love or to love someone then? Because, and I'm not suggesting that you need to be polyamory, but I'm suggesting that you need to love them with what love is. And we're taught that love is this possessive thing that says, you are my toy, and it regresses us to two. And when you're two, you don't understand what sharing is. You've just come into awareness of your own body. Mm-hmm. Now someone wants to take this thing away from you and give it to a random someone else. oh, no, no, no. You must not stop. And there would be a tantrum and crying and the kicking and the screaming. And that's what adults do when it comes to their lover. It's like,
hell yeah.
What? It's like you're my thing, and someone might steal you from me, and then I must go after you, and I must stalk the person. And the stories that I've heard from adults.
Oh my God, I know.
I'm like, what?
You went to like, what length to do what? And they're perfectly fine with it too. Because that little inner tantruming toddler, it makes perfect sense to that side of you. But to the rest of us watching you, boo-boo, you're a little stalkerish. It's a little scary. Stop it.
I can't imagine fighting over a man.
Mm-mm.
Like I literally, and I think the first time I probably realized I was poly when I thought back because someone asked me about it. I was in high school and I had a boyfriend sophomore year, though my father tried to convince me I didn't. But I had this boyfriend sophomore year and I went to boarding school. And so we went home for the summer, came back junior year, and he came back with a girlfriend, apparently, a transfer student who had come in her junior year. And I remember distinctly talking to him in the cafeteria, like, well, why didn't you just tell me? Like I wasn't even crying. I was just like, well, why didn't you tell me? And then she was there and she was like, wait, you had a girlfriend? And he was like, uh-oh. And she was like, oh no. And she's like, well, I don't want to be with you. You were seeing someone, and I was like, oh, okay. And she and I became friends, and he and I ended up becoming great friends too. Like he was never my enemy.
Wow.
You know what I mean? But I was just like, why didn't you just tell me? Like I was just like so matter of fact about it. Like, hey, okay, just don't lie to me.
Right. That
was always
Jerry Springer moment for you, which I
just don't lie to me. Either you're for me or you're not.
Sure. And if people could just understand that as a part of sex too, it's like we just have these different sexual scripts. They're like menus. Like it's not, I don't need to be upset because you don't want this behavior. Like you just may not be my person or one of my people if we're poly.
That's the fear though, right? That says I have to make you my person. I have to make you my person. You have to fit the idea that I have. And if you don't, then who will? And now I will be devastated.
Oh, good Lord, the stories we tell ourselves.
Yes. There's no one else like you in the world. No one else can make me feel the way you feel, the way you make me feel. No one else.
This concept of soulmates that people take so out of proportion is really hurting our society and our relationships. And then we know as researchers and clinicians now that what is amazing for love, that idea of belonging and you are mine, is terrible for sex. And then they wonder why their sex lives suck because sex requires mystery and passion and risk. And I can't have that if you're just, the chick I see in sweatpants every night and I feel like I know everything about you. It doesn't work. We need to have those multiple sides in that walk-in closet. Let me see your punk rock side. Let me see your business side.
Yes, we do. And I will, because I'm not pristine and I need for the audience to know that because most people aren't. And most of the women that I've spoken to, myself in general, and myself as well, who've had relationships with married men, because a lot of us have said that has been some of the most exciting best time that either one of us have had because there was this understanding, right? That this is not my person. We're really here just to have the sheer fun and joy of it. And unfortunately, what was going on was the very thing that you're talking about.
Right.
Is this complacency that was happening, in the other relationships. My thing was always, look, we can do this. Can't you just tell the person? And it's like, no, because then I'll lose everything. And I'm just like, I don't understand. Like, I'm not trying to steal you, but that's a whole other thing. But it's yes, this idea that this is my person and they're not going anywhere. And so other parts of the relationship begin to dwindle when it could be rectified. And not that you have to be poly, but that you have to let out the others. Like I'm real big on polyamory. Like I'm for real. I think it would save the world. But I understand that everybody doesn't think that way. At the very least, explore the other sides of yourself. Be poly in your monogamy. Put on a wig. Put on a different outfit. Go somewhere you've never gone before. Do it in a different position, not in the bed. I've talked to people, well, why don't you just have sex on the kitchen floor? Why would we have sex on the kitchen floor? I'm sorry, what? Have you never had sex on your kitchen floor? No, but you have a house. Yes. Okay. I don't know how I can help you now. So, just be poly in your monogamy.
Yes, I agree. So basically, this conversation is boiled down to, we need to be our authentic full self. We need to be mindful of that. We need to bring our turned on, aroused sides of ourselves into everything.
Yay! And see, that's why better sex, healthy relationships. The first thing is better sex, healthy relationships, happier lives. And I think that so much pain would be eradicated in the world. Like, who walks away from good sex mad?
Oh, God,
you
right?
know?
How do you go about your day pissed off if you've had a great orgasm? With yourself or someone else? Sometimes it's a good reset button. Boo-boo, go hit your reset button a couple times.
It's like, that's the running joke with people, right? When they're all like smiling, it's like, oh, did you get some last night? Because you're walking in here on clouds.
And what if you could do that daily?
Right. And what if you could even do it even if you don't have a partner?
Oh, for sure. Some of the best orgasms I've had have been by myself. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you surely can.
The day goes about much better. Again, it's not about living on cloud nine, but it's about bringing that cloud nine experience through you throughout your day. And I guarantee that, and I see it every time when I work with a couple, which I'm doing less and less of, but hey, the ones that, or even the just individuals talking to me about their relationship, if they've had great sex the night before, the stupid little shit that they'll complain about in my office, nil. Now, but if they haven't,
exactly,
him leaving his boxers on the floor or a plate in the kitchen is suddenly grounds for why he doesn't love me, Maisha. That boy doesn't respect me anymore.
Right.
And I'm going, girl, you just need to get off. I mean, I'm not minimizing y'all, please. Obviously, there's other things to look at, but
yeah. But
in general, yes. When I know that you really don't feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I've told, would tell my ex-husband, and this is just me, because I have to be sensitive here. I know that there are some people out there who are, and rightfully so, very sensitive to sex and consent. Yeah. So this is all within the framework, obviously, of people who know each other and love each other and care about each other. Let me preface it with that.
Okay.
But there are times when, like, if I'm, I was in a mood, right? Whatever was going on in my own mind, and I'm just doing the naggy thing that sometimes we women do, because we do. It's like, look, just come over and be like, just shut up and turn around. I'm like, oh, okay. My whole mindset has changed, and I'm like, my hands are splayed like I'm on a police car, and it's like, okay. And now afterwards, it's like, now what's going on? Huh? No, I'm good.
That's true.
I'm good. But again, in the context of, that's why I have to preface it with that. But that works for me.
And for some women, because I've said the same thing to women in session, sometimes it can also just be seduce me and give your partner permission to try and warm you up. If you're not the type that likes to be taken against the wall, okay, fine. The rest of us will enjoy that for you. But you could be, what's a way that he can lovingly invite you to go play with yourself or play with him? Because you're craving.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So and that's okay too.
Yeah, right? So winding down, what are some ways? You've got a few, I know, one coming up, the Orgasmic Alchemy for Women, right? That starts next month.
It does. It starts May 6th. I'm so excited. People have asked me to do this for a while. And so now here it is.
Tell us about it. What is it? How can we get in on it?
Absolutely. So yes, it's Orgasmic Alchemy for Women. It is 5 weeks of orgasms, pleasure, manifestation, and creation. I'm actually going to be taking women through the processes that I've been through that I know have worked for me. That's going to be my journaling. That's going to be how I've literally used my orgasms and the cycles of the moon to manifest and create more money than I've ever had before in my life. How I've used that to also create abundant love. And I know for women, I usually think that means just the men. I mean, also for myself, because that happened, that's how the men have ended up happening. So it's going to be 5 weeks. We're going to go over sex and spirit, breath work and orgasm. I'm going to show women how to have an orgasm just by breathing. your juicy affirmations and all of your desires, your sensual power and your feminine magic, because someone just said to me today, do you know what it's like to have a vagina? It's like having your wallet on you that's filled with money all the time. I was like,
Ooh.
yes, that's how powerful we are. I love that. And then the last week, we're putting it all together. We're really going to hone in. I'm going to show women how to create affirmations that work, because I've learned from years, and, I watched The Secret and just thought that was it. No, I've learned from trial and error how to create them so that they actually do work. So we're going to go through all of that. I'm so excited. I'm excited. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I love it. It looks so good. And you also work with men, don't you? I thought I saw.
I do work with men. This program, it happens to be just for women, because men usually don't get down with the woo-woo. But for the men, I do energy work. So men are physical. And so for them, I prefer to see them in person. Mm-hmm. And what I do is a combination of Reiki and Tantra energy healing, along with some other modalities that I've learned over the course of, I can't tell you, like 2 decades now. And it's really about connecting their penis to their heart, and really about helping men to get deeper into themselves, with assisting them with erectile dysfunction, with premature ejaculation, with communication with women, how to understand women better, and just giving them the nurturing that they need, because men have not really received that. And there's been a lot of pressure on them to perform sexually, which can lead to erectile dysfunction. Mm-hmm. And just to not be able to say, babe, I don't want sex. I just want to be held. And to not have the woman look at them like, what the hell's wrong with you? How do you mean you don't want to have sex? Are you having sex with someone else? So right. I really want them to understand that it's okay for you to just be held and just be stroked, and that there's no expected outcome, out of that. And that really helps them to get into their bodies and have longer erections and stronger orgasms.
And so for everyone who's now dying to run and find you, where are you located?
You can find me everywhere. You can at Sensual Energy Alchemy. So my website is sensualenergyalchemy.com. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, and still kind of Twitter, I guess, at Sensual Energy Alchemy. I do most of my stuff on Instagram just because the laws have changed.
Right. And for your in-person sessions, what state are you in?
I am in New York. I'm in New York City.
That's what I thought. So check all of that out. And Maisha, thank you so, so much. We might have to start a whole nother series, girl.
I know. I love talking with you. It's so much fun. I've got to come visit you now.
Yeah. Bring you down to Pensacola, doll, whenever you're ready.
Absolutely.
All right. Until next time, love. Thanks for listening to the Sacred Psychology Podcast. I pray you found some inspiration and empowerment to go out and make this life the most fulfilling possible. You can follow Sacred Psychology on Facebook and YouTube. If you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Tag us on social media and let us know what you think as well. Please note that the information provided is not meant to convey professional, psychological, or medical advice. If you could use such services, I highly recommend seeking them out from someone you trust. To get in touch with me personally or to see how we might work together, please check out ariatherapy.com or talesfromatrapezoid.com. Until next time, everyone.